Well, this week, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints offering $250 million in a settlement as part of Boy Scouts of America bankruptcy trial. Now, the scouting organization facing more than 80,000 claims of sexual abuse among Scout leaders. Tonight, ABC4's Nick McGurk breaking down internal Boy Scout documents for us, including dozens from Utah called the Perversion Files. Nick, what are you finding out?
Well, Emily, these documents, here's what they do. They document specific allegations against specific Scout leaders. This goes back decades. And today over the phone, I spoke with the attorney who uncovered these files. He says they just scratched the surface. Here's what we know right now. There are about 3,000 victims documented in this bankruptcy filing, victims that were in church-sponsored troops. Big picture, he says, this $250 million settlement from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, he calls that inadequate. The so-called perversion files, documented online by the Los Angeles Times, showcase actual paperwork on Scout leaders going back decades. The Times has nearly 2,000 such cases, 86 of which are tied to Utah. Now, the earliest documented case we found dates back to 1976 in the Beehive State. A member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints accused of molesting a scout in a tent while camping. According to the document, his bishop knew about this and accusations involving other children, but, quote, he feels that because of the confidential nature of his position as bishop, quote, he cannot release copies of this information. These documents were called ineligible volunteer record sheets. We found another from 1991 detailing a member of the church accused of child sexual molestation. The document says the Scout leader's, quote, ecclesiastical leader knew about accusations, but, quote, no charges were filed, as the mother was talked out of it at the time by church leaders. By phone today, I spoke with attorney Tim Kosnoff. He represents some 17,000 of the more than 80,000 victims who have filed claims in the Boy Scouts bankruptcy. Kosnoff says the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints offering $250 million for shelter from legal liability is totally inadequate. For context, he says, 15 to 20% of total victims were part of the church-sponsored troops. Kosnoff calling $250 million an opening offer. It's one the Scouts have agreed to, but a judge must rule on next. The church releasing a statement today, quote, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints condemns abuse of any kind. We express our love and concern for those who have experienced abuse through scouting or any other circumstance. This has been a prolonged process that included, as one of many interested parties, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as a former sponsoring organization. This contribution will provide opportunities to alleviate the suffering of those who have experienced abuse. Now, this bankruptcy filing is the National Boy Scouts of America. It gets a little complicated, but there are tens of thousands subsidiary organizations. There's councils, there's churches that have sponsored troops, like the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And all of those subsidiary organizations, they face legal liability unless, according to this attorney, they provide a substantial contribution. So that's what the church is doing here by offering that $250 million settlement. But here's what happens next. A judge would have to approve the fact that it would actually go to vote by those victims, and 2/3 of the victims would have to approve of that number, and the attorney Kosnoff says he doesn't think that will happen. There's a lot going on here. We're going to keep you up to date as this proceeds. Live in Salt Lake, I'm Nick McGurk, ABC4 News.